call the meeting to order. I would stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jake, will you call the roll, please?
Butler,
Here.
Jordan, Lipscomb, Oakridge, Smith,
Here.
Thrash,
Here.
Vincenzo.
Here.
4 members present.
Okay, very quickly, this is merely to go over the legislation that was discussed and read at the previous meeting on the 5th. Make some changes in the budget, which they found were in error, and basically to make sure that we get a second reading down on the temporary budget, so that at the next meeting, it would be a final budget, or not final, but it could be the third reading for the temporary, so we don't have to shut the city down on January 1st. So I'll just, Elizabeth, you want to explain?
Yes, there are going to be 3 pieces of legislation. The first one, I'm going out of order on our agenda. First one is ordinance number 2022-46. That was the ordinance where we were going to try and create a second Park and Recreations Fund just for, specifically for donations received. We're going to withdraw that motion, or that piece of legislation. So, and when you go look on the city website, it'll show that ordinance number, and beside it, it'll say withdrawn. The reason we're withdrawing it is we're just going to go ahead and put that donation money into the regular Parks and Recreation Fund, which had already been established, and that will be the subject of 2022-48. So there will be no second reading of 2022-46. That piece of legislation has been withdrawn by the Finance Director.
Okay, so we do have ordinance 2022-47. Jake, would you read that for us?
Before Jake reads the 2022-47, that is our temporary budget. That is what is going to get us over the hump into the new year. Our final budget is not due in the auditor's office until March of 2023. The difference between what was read on our last regular meeting is, you'll look under special revenue funds, you'll see 2042 Parks and Recreation Donations Fund. That has been eliminated, and we are going to be putting that money into 2041 Parks and Recreation Fund. So that is a change, but this is just a second reading, so we can do some changes. The Finance Committee Chair found a math error, and that also has been corrected on the temporary budget. So now we can do the second reading.
Okay, we'll do the second reading on.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. So we're making modifications, but we're still doing the second reading.
This is the second reading because the ordinance itself is just for the temporary budget.
I understand. So we're allowed to modify and still
We're
do a
allowed to
second
modify
reading?
things. We're not substantially changing it. We're still passing a temporary budget. We are just adjusting some numbers
We're
on
sure
that.
that is
Right.
good to go as a second
Yes.
reading, even though we made changes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Jake, would you read 2022-47?
Ordinance number 2022-47, an ordinance to make temporary appropriations for the normal expenses and other expenditures of the city of St. Clairsville, state of Ohio, for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, that is the second reading. We'll move on to 2022-48.
2022-48 is the ordinance to make supplemental revenue and appropriations for the normal expenses and other expenditures of the City of St. Clairsville, State of Ohio for the period of January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency. That is taking all the revenue that was raised from the turkey trot, which was $12,308, and after expenses have been paid, the amount of money going to the family that was the subject of that particular event is $8,497. You'll see the appropriations there.
Okay, this, again, they asked for emergency legislation, which cannot be passed tonight, but this will take into consideration first reading, and because it does have emergency legislation in it, it can be passed as an emergency at the regular meeting on the 19th, next Monday, and that would allow the family
Yes,
to get the
with
money
the
prior to
yes.
Christmas.
With the emergency language in there, that allows, once this is signed, for the legislation to be immediately effective, so that check can be written out to the family for whom it was raised.
Does anybody have any questions on that?
So just what is the difference between this 2022-48 and the issues we had?
This is basically, we already have this fund created, so we're not creating a new fund.
Okay.
What we were trying to do before is the cart got placed before the horse. We were trying to create a new fund, so it'd be a separate charitable donation fund. And that way, it wasn't going, this is basically Parks and Recreation's operational budget, so everything that goes in here, they can go out. They wanted essentially to have a separate line item just to show where the donations came in, because there are other events such as the concerts where the rec board gets donations and stuff for that. And they could account for, it was easier accounting for Park and Recreations. The thing is, like I said, it was cart before the horse. We needed to have prior approval, and we would have received it later, but they didn't get it in time for our meeting last time. So we're just, for this year, we're doing this. Should we do, continue with the turkey trot going forward, we're probably going to make some adjustments that we'll address with council next year to handle that particular
So
situation.
this was already in place.
Right, yes,
We
yes.
just missed on
How,
the
yes,
funds went.
right, like I said, it was the cart before the horse,
Eric had actually wanted to create a whole separate checking account,
which would have been a
which
different thing.
would have been, yeah, a whole nother nightmare. So that's
Yes.
why it was thought we just make this fund for it and go from there.
So we get through this one, and like you said, if we continue with the
Right.
turkey trot, will we have a different?
We can create, yes, next year, should we decide to do another fund, we can go through the procedural process to get the approval to create it. And do it,
So nothing was really done.
No, nothing, no, it was just, like I said, procedural error.
Okay.
I think the effort with everybody emotionally trying to get the money to the family as soon as possible prior to Christmas. And
Well, I mean, the whole event, Eric approached me 3 weeks before, and I had done several 5Ks before with other entities and said, you realize how much work is going into this. I said, I will help you and support you, but this is going to be big. And I said, we're going to make mistakes, take notes, and we'll correct them as we go along and go from there. And this is one of those speed bumps. So we're taking notes. And if we do it, I think it was a worthwhile event. I think it definitely is going to help a family in need. And I know there were several questions about how the family was picked. With the short amount of time that was done, the rec director picked them directly. Next year, the rec board has already had discussions about taking applications, and then the rec board will vote and then bring it to council and say, here's who we've chosen and gone through. This was just literally last minute, hurry up and let's do what we can and go from there. So lessons
We are over
learned.
this speed bump,
Yes.
and
I hope so.
Yes, I hope so, yes.
That, we learn from this and we just keep moving forward and going through, because I think everyone can agree that this is definitely a worthy event. I know there was also, I had discussions with President Vilas about the staffing of it, The only person that was actually on payroll that day was one police officer who was already on duty. We just brought him down and had him do traffic control. Matt came in, he donated his time, I donated my time, the 3 guys in the rec department all donated their time, and then everything else was volunteers. So this didn't cost the city anything going forward.
So it's just the social media got us,
Yes.
Mhm.
Social
Yes.
media nightmare.
yeah, okay. Well, thank you for clarifying it.
Yes.
What went into the difference of the 8497 as opposed to the 12,000?
There was a spreadsheet, I mean, you may not have had a chance to read it, that was sent out to council that,
Eric had it
Shows
listed.
the
It
breakdown.
was-
yes,
It
shows the
was
breakdown.
the timing, purchase of the shirts.
Just broadly?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It was the
I mean, I'm
expenses.
asking broadly
Right.
just because.
Yeah, it's the expenses.
That's what it was.
to do
We
the
have it,
events.
I can send it if you guys don't have it again.
I'll find it, I just missed
It's-
it, so I just wondered, just
Yep.
to put it
And
out
he's-
there verbally, what.
He
what
broke
the
it down
difference was.
completely, and if anyone would want a copy of it,
They-
citizens or
they just
whoever,
Get that.
they can have it and go through it. I made sure he had a breakdown of everything, and he's got receipts for everything that was done with it,
Okay.
along with the breakdown.
My other question is if we are, because obviously, many families are, we have many in need, and so this is a pretty huge event. But if we're talking about doing something like this next year with appropriating proper donations and funds and accounts and things, is there a way that we could choose like 3 families?
Could be,
And
yes.
then equally split, so that we're not just choosing one,
One.
because I
Yes.
feel like that's
That's
not.
something I can definitely take to the rec board and have a discussion with them about.
just-
It was just,
I feel like that, right.
at this time, it was literally the
Got
3
it.
weeks before, and I'm like,
Yep,
whoa,
it's
okay.
just all of this kind of got
Yeah.
me thinking, after a lot of things came up, and I'm just wondering if we chose, 3 family, or what
Yes,
have you,
it
it
could
could
be-
be
it could be
even a
more.
bigger
There's-
turnout.
Exactly,
Right.
there's nothing.
So,
There's nothing set in stone right now with any of it. Once we finalize some of it and bring it, I'll bring it to council.
That's
Christie
fine.
will bring it to
Yeah.
council too, being the liaison between council and the rec board. But we have already had discussions about it and how we move forward and how we can make it better and do things like that. So that's
Great.
definitely something that
And
is
I'm not
on the
even
table.
saying limiting to 3, I'm just saying, does it change the way we appropriate funds? Or if we have multiple families as opposed to 1, can we still go through the same procedural
I think
things
it's the
that
same
we're-
procedural thing. It's just the
Even-
accounting of
even
where it
by
is to make sure
multifamily.
it's separate.
Right.
And then we do the same thing, it's just, okay, here it is, here's the income, here's the revenue, here's the expenses, here's what's left, and then you just divide that by 3 or
3 or
5
whatever.
or 10 or,
Okay,
whatever.
All right.
And then we just have that, and we actually have the paper and say, look, everybody asked, here it is, there's
Mhm.
nothing going on, we're just trying to do a good thing.
okay,
And I think what'll help that too is the fact that next year, if they think about it early, they'll be able to get the information out
Yes.
to the public.
Yes.
Yes.
My understanding, I'm not big into the running part of it, but for a very short notification and the fact of what the money was going toward, this was a great turnout on such a short notice. So in the future, if.
That's what I'm
public is
thinking, if
aware
there
of
was
it,
more
we may get a
families.
bunch of
Right.
extra
or more,
people.
When we
Families.
first initially discussed it, we were talking about maybe 100 participants, and I
Yeah.
think there was it
300.
300
It was
or
almost
400.
So
definitely-
So, I mean, it was just like, wow, okay, here we go, and just going from there.
okay, that's all I got, there's a couple things,
Okay, any other questions, anybody? You take, would you read 2022-48, please?
Ordinance number 2022-48, an ordinance to make supplemental revenue and appropriations for the normal expenses and other expenditures of the city of St. Clairsville, state of Ohio for the period January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, again, since that is first reading, and we have only 4 people present, that will go down as the first reading. And at the full council meeting on the 19th, next Monday, this can be taken up farther and it could be passed. We have enough people present and in favor of it. It could be passed as an emergency legislation at the next meeting and bypass. So basically, that's it. That's what the meeting's about, and we pretty much accomplished what we needed. So at this time, we have a motion to adjourn. Meeting adjourned.